Rebbe Meir Recheles, one of the wealthiest men in Mezhebush and one of the first followers of the Baal Shem Tov. One day he ran into the Beis Midrash, the study hall of the Baal Shem Tov, and announced the great news that his daughter was engaged and the wedding was to take place next week. Oh, what a huge commotion broke out. Everyone wanted to know, who is this lucky man? Who is the chassan? Who's going to be the groom? So they ask him, who's going to be the groom? He responds, oh, he's the son of Moshe, a very wealthy man in Polnoy, and the top pupil of Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polnoy. Everyone was so excited. Oh, what a great student. Like, they're going to for sure bring their Rebbe, the Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polnoy. The Rebbe of Polnoy is going to come and meet the Baal Shem Tov. What kind of amazing light are they going to bring into this world? It's going to be amazing. So everyone got excited. Rebbe Meir runs into the Baal Shem Tov's office and tells him the great news and requests that he be there. Baal Shem Tov says, of course I'll be there, but on one condition. The condition is that the chassan and his father must come and daven with me. They must pray with me beforehand. He says, of course, they'll be there. And he leaves the room. Now the chassan and the father, days before the wedding is to take place, are getting ready for their journey. They go to their Rebbe, the Rebbe of Polnoy, and they tell him, we want you to come to the wedding. He says, of course, I wouldn't miss it for the world, but on one condition. You cannot see the Baal Shem Tov. I don't want you near him. No way, not even a sight. He said, okay, sounds good. And the three of them embark on their journey towards Mezhebush. They stop one night at an inn, where the Rebbe catches a glimpse and sees them writing letters to the Baal Shem Tov, as is the custom when going to see a great Rebbe. He says, what are you doing? I thought we had a deal. He said, you have to understand, my father-in-law set up this meeting that we should go and daven with the Baal Shem Tov. It was the only condition, and we have to do it. And I knew you wouldn't come if I told you that this was the case. The Rebbe wasn't taking it. He was furious. He said, no, I refuse to come with you. I'm going to stay here. Once the wedding is over, you could come pick me up and we'll go back together. He locked himself in his room and he got busy in his studies and back to fasting. As was known, the Rebbe used to fast all the time. This was drastically different from the Baal Shem Tov, who thought that fasting weakened your service and hindered your effect in this world. He also thought that one shouldn't engage in study all the time, but should go out and change the world and inspire people, lift them up from the dark places. Two very different people over here. But the chassan and his father continued on to Mezhebush. As time went on, and now the wedding was going to take place soon, the great Rebbe of Polnoy started to regret his decision, thinking, how could I do this? My top pupil is going to get married and this doesn't feel right. He says, if I walk, I think I can make it there in time. So he starts walking there to Mezhebush. Meanwhile, in Mezhebush, the Baal Shem Tov has sat down with both the chassan and kala to give them brachas, to talk to them about the whole wedding, about their life, and everything that's going to come. At this point, it's late in the night. The Baal Shem Tov is sitting there with the family of the chassan on one side, all the people from Polnoy, all the groom's family, and with the kala on the other side, all the wife's family, all the people from Mezhebush. And in front of them, in the courtyard, is all the guests. So the Rebbe is about to start speaking, and the Rebbe of Polnoy gets there just in time, but no one can notice him, it's too dark. So he pushes his way to the front to see the Baal Shem Tov. And he gets there as the Baal Shem Tov begins speaking. The Baal Shem Tov opens up by saying, I want all the people of Polnoy to know something, that their Rebbe is a Gaon and a tzaddik. The man is righteous beyond compare. He says, but there's something that you do not know. On the night of Tisha B'Av, which for us took place this past Shabbat, it says on the night of Tisha B'Av, the Rebbe was engaged in fasting, something that he did very often. This shocked the Rebbe. He didn't know anyone knew that he was fasting all the time. But Tisha B'Av, everyone fasted, so he was okay with it. So he says, on this night the Rebbe was fasting, and he was reading Eicha Rabbah, a very intense text, and he was crying and pouring his heart over the destruction of the temple, really feeling the pain. And with all this crying and all this toll, he passed out. He fainted. a child that was in the shul saw him and ran over to him and tried to yell at him, wake up, but nothing was working. So the child said, this is surely a matter of life and death. I need to go get him some food. So he went and brought him an apple. At this point, the Rebbe had regained consciousness, although he was very out of it. And the child handed him the apple as the Rebbe started to make a bracha over the apple. Once he realized what he was doing, he stopped and immediately threw the apple away and started crying. Oh, like, how could I even think to eat? I fast all the time, and I'm here about to eat on of all the fast days, one of the worst days to eat. So he begins saying Tehillim. Then he realizes, wait a minute, I'm not even allowed to say Tehillim on this night. So he stops, goes back to his reading of Eicha Rabbah, and now he falls asleep. He has this dream where he's walking in Polnoy, the streets he knows well, and he sees this beautiful garden. And in this garden he sees luscious fruits, beautiful big trees, all the greenery, all the beautiful flowers, and a guard is standing there. So the Rebbe goes to the guard and says, whose orchard is this? I've lived here my whole life and never seen such a place. The guard responds, this is the orchard of the Rebbe of Polnoy. He says, that's not possible. I'm the Rebbe of Polnoy. He says, then it is so. You see, this orchard was built by a bracha that was said in vain. And all of a sudden the Rebbe was in shock. He could see it, the disgusting nature of this beautiful place, all built on his bracha, his blessing made in vain. So he woke up from his dream, and as soon as Tisha B'Av was over, continued his fast and started reading Tehillim. As he finished the first book of Tehillim, he once again fell asleep, and again was at this orchard. So he went to the guard and said, so, what's with this orchard? The guard responded, indeed, all the fruits are starting to rot and fall to the ground. It seems some things are changing. Again, he wakes up and begins reading the second book now. As he finishes the second book, once again falls asleep from exhaustion. Goes to the guard once again in the same dream. Asks him, so, what's with the garden? The guard responds, it seems that the leaves are starting to fall. He sees progress. Again, he goes, finishes the third, the fourth book, goes back to the garden in his dreams. Asks the guard, what is with this orchard? The guard responds, it seems both the small and the big branches are starting to fall off. Finally, he goes and finishes the fifth book. Now he's crying over these Tehillim, the Psalms of David. All the angels have come down from the heavens to witness this drastic feat as he poured his soul out over his sin. And he falls asleep again. He sees the orchard, goes to the guard and asks, what's with the orchard? The guard responds, it seems that the prayers have been fulfilled. All the trees have started to die. The orchard is not doing well. Finally, the Rebbe wakes up and he thinks he's forgotten about the whole thing, but he knows that he hasn't accomplished it all. The Baal Shem Tov concludes this story, telling this to the townspeople sitting in front of him. He says, the Rebbe thinks that he may have accomplished what he wanted, but he knows that he hasn't accomplished it all, for the roots of those trees are still ingrained in the orchard. He couldn't eradicate this orchard, and his sin is still bearing in his mind. The Rebbe of Polnoy, standing right there in front, was in shock. How could the Baal Shem Tov know this secret? No one knew this. As soon as the wedding festivities go underway, the Baal Shem Tov goes back to his office and tells his two students, please learn here. I'm going to be in my office doing meditation. So the two students are sitting there, the Baal Shem Tov is in his office, and the Rebbe of Polnoy rushes in. The two students think they recognize him, but they're not sure who this man is. All of a sudden, the Baal Shem Tov door flies open. He says, Rebbe, it's so good to see you. Welcome. He says, please step into my office. Let's talk about how we can fix your problem. Again, the Rebbe of Polnoy is in shock. How does the Baal Shem Tov know these things? Goes into his office, and the Baal Shem Tov begins telling him, please stay here, learn with me, and together I'll teach you the ways that you could rectify all these issues in your life. And sure enough, he does. These stories are recorded by the Rebbe of Polnoy, and he begins all these stories of the great Baal Shem Tov by saying, "These are the stories told by my Rebbe, my master." It seems that the Baal Shem Tov had effects on the greatest just as much as he did on the smallest. So I hope everyone has a blessed week, and I hope to see you all in Jerusalem. Shavua Tov.